without any more further ado, let's just get right into the review. So, Raw Deal, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's look it up on IMDb. I'm not sure what year it is. I know it's the 80s. 1986. I was right that it was the 80s. And there's also a Raw Deal from 1948, but they are unrelated films. I think the one from 1948 is more generally well received, but this one is better known, at least nowadays, because it's an action movie starring Arnold Schwarzenegger, director John Irvin. And 5.5 this gets out of 10 on IMDb, which isn't the best rating, it's not the worst rating. This movie is sort of a by the numbers action movie. I'll get into the plot soon here, but let's just look at the box office information. Let's also look at all the actors. If there's anyone else there's no one else I really recognize from anything. I'm sure they're in other stuff, but I only really know Arnold in this film. Let's check out at the bottom here what we got for box office. Okay, so the budget was 8.5 million, and then it made 16 million. So it's, they made their money back. They even doubled their money. So not so bad, but not so great either, as far as like movies that have big profits go anyways. But I didn't hate this movie. In fact, I enjoyed it. It's not perfect, but very few movies are. I mean, Pootie Tang's like one of the only ones that's perfect. But Raw Deal, Arnold Schwarzenegger. Let's start getting into it. So the basic plot: Arnold Schwarzenegger is a sheriff in a small town, but before this, he was an FBI agent, and he was disgraced because he beat up a witness or something. They don't really explain that well. They explain it later, but it's not really done as well as it could have been, in my opinion. A lot of the movie, I'm like wondering, like, okay, what happened there? Because they sort of mention it, but then they don't explain it. But he was disgraced because he beat up a witness, and then he was taken out of the FBI or something. But then his former colleague hires him to basically not kill at first, but I mean that's gonna be the goal eventually. But he hires him to infiltrate this mafia and become a part of them, and then work your way from the inside, undercover basically, but not undercover in the sense that he's actually with the police for this mission or whatever you want to call it. Arnold Schwarzenegger is awesome, right? Everyone loves Arnold, and there's so many movies with him like this, and one that comes to the mind is Commando. And Commando is super great. It's over the top, it's silly, but it's fun, and it's awesome action from the beginning to the end. There's funny stuff in it too. This is a similar feel to that, but not quite as awesome. This is fun, but it's not that fun. Because Commando's really great, but this reminded me of it a bit. Just sort of like Commando, but toned down, is sort of how I feel like this. Hello, whoever's popping in. Welcome to the stream. But let's talk about some of the shit that I love, and then I'll get into some of the shit that I didn't like that much. Oh my god, it's OG Nixter. Let's give you a shout out, my friend. Welcome to the party. Thank you so much for hanging out. Let's give you a shout out. How are you doing? Welcome to the party. We're talking about Raw Deal. Have you seen this film with Arnold Schwarzenegger? So parts that I like, let's talk about just some of the weird bits. So there's this part where, and I have to spoil it a little bit, but like I said, it's a by the numbers action movie, so you can kind of see where it's going anyway. But the big boss guy, the big evil mobster boss guy, let's call him that. At the end, Arnold Schwarzenegger's obviously, after him. He shoots him, he kills him. I said spoiler alert, so I think it's okay. And he takes a bowl of Good and Plenty or Goodies, some sort of multicolored candy like that. I think it's Good and Plenty. And he goes over to the dead body and he just pours the Good and Plenty all over the body. And then you think he'd say something like, just desserts or like some sort of a one-liner, but he just pours it and it walks away. It's kind of awkward, but it made me laugh for sure. And then there's another part that was super weird. It didn't make sense, but again, I liked it because it was super absurd and funny. There's a part where Arnold Schwarzenegger has been sort of ambushed by these other mobsters, and then a cop breaks it up, and the cop stops Arnold Schwarzenegger, but Arnold Schwarzenegger is supposed to be Joseph P. Brenner, which is not his real name, but he's taken this identity so he can infiltrate the mob. But he's asked by the cop that stops him, he says, what does the P in Joseph P. Brenner stand for? And Arnold Schwarzenegger says, pussy. And it's funny, but you'd think there would be more after that. Like the cop would be like, okay, what's the deal with that? Why'd you say pussy? But he just says, all right, have a good night. There's no more conversation after Arnold Schwarzenegger says pussy. And that's confusing to me. I'm like, I don't think that's how that would actually happen, but you let it slide because it's a movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. You just sort of got to turn your brain off to a certain extent. But yeah, there's stuff like that just doesn't make sense. I did like this, however. I had fun with it. It wasn't perfect, but it's a fun movie, What else to talk about? So the love interest is weird. Let's talk about that. Because the love interest is sort of just a write-off. Because Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's been established, he's married at the beginning of the film. He has a wife. But then he's off flirting and, let's be honest, leading on this love interest that he meets later when he's on this mission to infiltrate the mob. So he meets another woman and they hit it off, but it's just not, it doesn't make sense. I think they should have written it where the wife was his love interest, or that he just didn't have a wife. But his wife is only in one scene at the beginning in the whole film, and then she's just gone for the whole movie, not even at the end. I thought that there'd be another scene with her at the end. No, nothing. She's gone. Kaput. That's it. But when she is, like, what I'm saying is that they should have gotten rid of that character, and they should have just had him be with the love interest that they set up. But then, because then they can't get together, and it's weird. It's like, well, I'm married, and it just doesn't sort of doesn't work out. But yeah, OG Nexter, follow OG Nexter if you haven't yet. Spaghetti or whoever else is here. Thank you for watching. This movie, what else to say about it? I feel like I've touched on most of the things that I wanted to talk about. But obviously, anything with Arnold is, I feel like, worth a watch. Like, he's fun. He's, it's a good action movies typically with him. But this is very by the numbers. You sort of expect what you get. You get what you expect. And that's not a bad thing to a certain extent. You can turn off your brain. It's a fun action movie. Arnold Schwarzenegger going around shooting stuff. There is another part that I'm thinking of now that I'd like to talk about. So there's a part where he's like suiting up, the classic scene in movies where they get all the guns and they put it on their bodies or whatever. Well, he's getting like a bunch of guns and he put them in a bag. But the sound effects are really funny. It's like, okay, boom, yeah, boo, yeah, boom, 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 yeah. And it's like this crazy 80s music. Let's talk about the soundtrack. So the soundtrack's really funny in this. Right off the bat, like as soon as the movie starts, it's like this hardcore 80s rock ballad, and it's like fucking people are walking and just walking. Okay, what's going on though? But people are just walking. And then we find out later it's like they're trying to kill this guy that has outed the mob or something like that, and that's what starts the whole movie. That's why Arnold Schwarzenegger is brought in. But it's just it's a funny sort of like, usually you wait for that kind of music, but it's like boom, right at the beginning, we're walking, there's funky music, let's go. And also, something sort of unrelated to the movie, but right when they started this movie, there was a production company, when they, how they have those logos come up before the movie, they had a production company logo come on the screen, and I thought it was the movie, and I was like, oh, this is cool, there's like sky coming in, and like, oh yeah, we're getting the movie, but it was just a logo, which is fun. But you know what? Honestly, I like this movie. It's not perfect, but only Pootie Tang is perfect, so that's fair. And honestly, I think I'm gonna rate this movie. I was like, where's my marker? I gotta rate this. Let's see. Raw deal. Arnold Schwarzenegger. This movie is on Tubi if you want to watch it. What? What do you question? 10? Out of 10. Out of 10. I'm not rating it 10. I'm out of 10. Yeah, that would be crazy if I rated it 10. I was like, well, it's not perfect, but I'm going to give it a perfect rating. No. Raw deal with Arnold Schwarzenegger. Check it out on Tubi if you want to see it. There's also Carrie on there, which I reviewed earlier today. I'm going to give Raw Deal a 6.4. Seems right. You know, it could have been better, but it could have been worse. You know, it was fun. I liked it. I laughed a lot during it. The action is pretty fun. There's some things that just don't make sense, but you can kind of just turn your brain off and be like, okay, this is an Arnold Schwarzenegger action movie. Let's have some fun. So, 6.4 out of 10 dogs. I liked it. That's the end of the review. Thank you very much. Raw deal, 6.4.